Papageorgiou and Catherine Natalie.
Welcome to the Creative Process Podcast. Yes, hi, this is Peter Papageorgiou, and welcome to the Creative Process Podcast. Today we have a very, very interesting show. My co-host, Catherine Natalie, my wife, will introduce our guest.
So welcome, Harlan Freedman.
Hello.
Now, Harlan...
Catherine, a little farther back from the mic.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead.
Harlan Freedman's career in Hollywood extends over 20 years, my friends, as a creative executive supervising the development, casting, and creation of television programming for such entertainment giants ABC, NBC, and Fox, and A&E. And don't forget the History Channel, too. And dozens of other cable networks. He has been seen as he has a keen sense of big, loud, unscripted cast while developing formats that translate into successful TV entertainment. Welcome, Harlan Freedman.
Thank you. I'm going to have to take you everywhere with me. I'll be at the grocery store and Catherine, take it away. May I introduce you to Harlan Freedman?
I mean, this is a really exciting episode because everyone wants to know how to create content. So,
Harlan, tell us a little bit where you're from and
oh goodness.
where were you born? Where were you conceptualized?
Born in well, I don't know about that actually. I purposely have not asked my parents that one. Originally from Ohio, then my family moved to Sacramento. And then I did some time in San Francisco, and then San Diego, and then to Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. Where'd you go to school?
San Diego State for television and film. And as I tell all my interns today, this match zero is
yeah, it didn't help at all.
No, it was good for me as a human being, but nothing I learned in college applies.
You pretty much learned everything, on the job training.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, the entertainment industry, like the college is great for like maturing and becoming a better person and learning collaboration and that kind of thing. But as far as like, learning how to do what we do in the entertainment industry, unless you're going to be business affairs or accounting, you don't need any college.
Yeah, it's the street of hard knocks, just being thrown right into the business, yeah.
actually just being thrown into situations where you have to think on your feet and survive and still come out as a hero to the cast and crew and whoever is around, and being able to just have serve coffee or do errands in the beginning and just pretty much lapping up to the producer probably, right?
Well, it's not so much lapping. Not anymore anyway.
Catherine, easy. You're blowing out my ears here.
Yeah.
There's no lapping. But, when I first came to Los Angeles, I was working in the commercial industry and then eventually went into scripted film and then into scripted television and then into reality. But there was somebody probably my age today that said every year 10,000 people come to Los Angeles to make it, writer, producer, director, actors. It doesn't matter. Yeah. That same year, 9,999 that have been here from whatever period of time leave. And of course she said, what are you going to be? And like all young bucks, I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to be that one. And it's fascinating to me because, at the time I was like, a bunch of old people talking about success, blah, blah, blah. My peer group, when I first started off, like all the PAs and you glob onto each other and help out each other, that kind of thing. There were about 75 of us. There are only 2 of us left. Literally everyone else has left the biz.
Wow. Now, what's
can I just add? I wanted to ask. Do you have any brothers and sisters in the business? Or?
I have one older brother who is a organizational development HR expert.
Oh, okay.
So nobody.
So
no, my
nobody
mom
in the
was an
business.
educator. My dad was a sales guy. Nope. No, when I went down this path, still to this day, my family are like, "What do you do?"
What kind of personality does one have to have getting out of college and saying, okay, I'm now going to produce content? Like what skills do you have to have automatically?
Ooh. I'm going to spin it back to that 10,000, analogy. My other friend that's still in the business, he and I couldn't be more different personality wise. For me, organic, my personality is I don't like to be told no. And in the entertainment industry, no is the number one word. So for me, that's that. And my friend George, he's got a great personality and he's good at what he does. And, I guess people like him, and that's, what it works for him. So coming out of college, it's a tough one. It all depends on what you want to do. I run it for the last 20 years. I've been running an internship program to the various production companies that I've worked with. And all the kids ask, what does it take to succeed? And everybody's different, literally everybody, it's hard work meets opportunity makes you lucky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you have to be ready for it, too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you have to.
training,
You definitely have to be open to and acknowledge it, and then be able to execute on it. And that's not the easiest thing in the world to do, because especially when you're young, you don't know what you're doing.
And it's a lot of insecurity.
I don't think I was ever insecure, and not a lot of the people that I know of, or at least they hide it well. I think it's just, some people have better instincts than others. A couple of people I know that ended up in the agency world, they have really sharp business instincts, and that propelled them perfectly in the agency world.
A lot of agents have lawyer degrees. They've gone to law school and things like that. Like the top agencies like CAA and UTA, and they've all gone to, become lawyers. And is that, or they started in the mailroom or something like that?
Yeah, I would say, probably 50% of the agents out there, have some kind of law degree, because at the end of the day, they're like supreme business people.
Yeah.
That's what their job are. And, they all started as assistants to some other agent and then worked their way up. Nobody goes to the top otherwise.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Harlan, tell us your first project that you actually were able to sell. Do you remember?
Oh, God. I've sold maybe 60 shows.
Right. Do you remember the first one, though?
Not a clue. No. Honestly, I'd love to say, that's like people are always like, what's your favorite show? And my answer is always the one that sold. So first show that sold, I honestly don't remember. It probably wasn't very good.
But it sold.
It sold. What a feeling that must be when you walk into a meeting and you sell a show. Tell us the feeling of that.
It's exhilarating. There's no doubt about it. Even to this day, as cynical as you become as a producer in development, when you get that, we're going to buy it, and then the cynical side kicks in. No problem. Bless you.
Thank you, Father.
You ever thought about why we still say bless you? It's not like your soul just left your body, and I'm saving you, Peter.
You're right. It's true. I know.
Every time, and like all our parents raised us to say bless you, and I still do it. And every single time I'm like, why did I say that?
I think it's because your heart stops briefly when you sneeze.
That's what they say. Yeah.
That's what they say.
Well, today's
that's also the case of when you sell a show and they buy it, your heart stops for that beat, but nobody says bless you, on that instance.
Well, today in Vegas it's a little dusty. It's windy, so when the dust is in the air, and it bothers me.
Yeah.
Not that I'm complaining, but anyway, I'm sorry, Harlan.
Oh, that's all right.
So tell us, like when someone says yes, someone's finally saying yes to something that you created. What goes through your mind? Like you have all these thoughts and things that you have to do. Like how do you break it down? Like how do you go from that yes meeting and then all of a sudden that pressure is on to deliver? So how do you for our audience, how do you break it down? Is there a formula, or is it just it depends on
What's
the
your
show?
procedures? Yeah.
What's your procedure?
Your protocol.
Well, it's funny because I want to talk about the pressure thing. Like in my early days, yes, there was pressure. And then the more times you do it, it's like becoming an Olympic athlete. Truly, you learn what you do and how you do it, to the degree of now it's just muscle memory. So, 4 weeks ago, I sold another show, got the yes on it. And there wasn't that feeling of pressure. I know what to do. I know who to hire. I know who to surround myself with. And, it's more of an enjoyable process, at this point in my career. But to answer your question, you get the yes, and then from the yes, you go into the business affairs contract aspect of it. And that becomes the waiting game, because I've had shows get yeses and then blow out in the deal making.
Oh, man.
And so, the cliche is, that you've been hired when the check clears the bank.
Yes. The check's being cleared.
It's the same thing in development. Is like, you get the yes, you go into business affairs, you do the contractual stuff, you sign the contractual stuff, and you're like, yay, I'm going to make a TV show. And then at that point, at any time, the network can be like, oh no, we've changed our mind. I mean, I had a show years ago. We sold the show to a network. I'm not going to say who they are. The show was sold as a reality comedy version. The regime changed in the middle of our pre-production. The new senior VP of development thought the show should be more of a drama than a comedy. And it took a whole lot of retooling, even though all the creative side thought that's the wrong move. And we made the series, and it came out terrible, and it killed that genre.
Wow.
to be honest with you. But, their checks cleared the bank, so at the end of the day, all was good, And quite honestly, the original version, I had built into my contract an Emmy bonus. That's how confident I was in that original format that got killed.
Wow.
Now, originally, when we met outside of the podcast, you had said you started in scripted, or
yeah, I started originally as a producer in television commercials, national commercials, and did that in San Diego after college. Came up to Los Angeles, continued on in that area. Decided that it wasn't an environment that made me happy. And
it's a longer process, you said, right?
For commercials? No, it's fast.
No, I'm not. No, because didn't you say you had worked on features too?
Well, after I did commercials, I went into feature films.
Right.
And the feature film producing side was great. The development side of it was not. It's to develop a film is roughly 5 to 7 years, depending on it's more than just writing the script. It's then about packaging it, and then availability of who you've packaged it with. 9 times out of 10 you have to have rewrites done on it, and then the director falls out, and then you get a new producer, and because they've got their hooks into celebrities, and then you get a celebrity and they blow out, and then you get another director, and it becomes this revolving door of packaging all these elements until finally the stars align, and then you're like, oh my God, everybody's actually on board with this. And then you get a studio who's on board with it, and they flip the bill, and you go make the movie, and bippity boppity boo.
So that's why you got into reality.
No, from there I moved into scripted television. Okay. It's incredibly rare to be able to move from one sect to another. The Hollywood likes experts, and anyone who makes that move, it's like, oh, you do feature films, you couldn't possibly do, scripted television. And, I have a big mouth, and I like to network a lot, and I met a lot of different people, and, I can't say it was the easiest transition in the world, but I made the transition into scripted television, and worked with some amazing people and did some amazing shows that nobody particularly liked. I think I have one of the greatest records of getting shows sold that don't do well.
You almost have to start over, right? If you go to one, like if you go to reality and then suddenly you go to scripted, you almost have to start over, or vice versa, because obviously it's different.
The people you sell to is different.
Yeah.
The storytelling at the end of the day is the same. It's the execution of that's different. So when I made the move from scripted television to unscripted television, you have to learn and meet and get them to trust you in the unscripted buying world. So, I was at ABC Touchstone at the time when I moved into reality, and the people that I supported at ABC Touchstone were the scripted side, not the unscripted side. And so when I flipped to the other side, I didn't even know people at ABC that did the unscripted thing. Now I could get to them, but it's one of those things. I heard this term a long time ago. People don't buy great television. They buy good television from people they know and trust. And that's very much the case, because at the end of the day, nobody has that crystal ball on what's going to succeed. There was a person at ABC who bought Dancing with the Stars, and he was so excited about it. And I was like, you bought a show on ballroom dancing and you're excited about it? And he was so excited. I'm like, I don't get it, man. My grandma's not going to even watch that show. And look, it was a huge hit. So whatever that pitch was and what he heard, made sense.
What, someone out there listening to this podcast, what advice do you give them? How do they start? What makes a good idea for a show? What's the ingredients of it? And how do they do the right moves as far as doing a treatment?
You had mentioned, I remember when we had coffee, there's 5 steps for a reality show to have, it should have inside.
Oh.
5 ingredients, 5 steps.
Hold on, I'm hitting the microphone.
It's God.
It's the reality show, like, gods.
Don't share that information.
Do not share.
I'm a big believer in, I don't know where I got this from or heard it or whatever, but there's 5 layers to the onion on a scripted TV show or an unscripted show. And every show's layers are different. Like the Real Housewives franchise, there's a cast of 5 women. Those are your 5 layers. You'll get dynamic storytelling that changes every time. On CSI, it's a cast of 5 again. You'll have a different murder, and then each of the characters has their different aspects that change and evolve. So it sounds like an easy thing to grasp, but I can't tell you how many times, even with my own development team, they'll come in and I'll be like, what are the layers? And they'll roll out. I'm like, that's not a dynamic element that will change. That's just the person. It's not about their personality. It's about, what function that's going to be. Like, I had the fortunate experience of working on Billy the Exterminator, which was a very easy one. It ran for 8 years on A&E. It was a family-run business, so every episode you're going to get family business dynamic. Every call that you get is a different job, a different critter, a different customer, and then it was set in Louisiana, and that alone is a character on itself. And so those 5 elements, you can sell a show with 3, layers, but if you get all 5, you're going to make a hit. It's going to roll on, because there's, it's one of those things of like when series jump the shark, it's because they've either done everything they could possibly do, or there's not enough layers there to make the show keep getting more exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Harlan, tell the audience, what's the creative process for you?
Well,
tell us your journey of creating.
With reality TV, most production companies develop probably 90% in-house with their own team of development people and casting people. So you have to have a large curiosity to do development. You're always scanning the world around you. You're listening to other people's conversations. You're observing people's behavior. You're reading the newspaper or the digital version of trying to find inspiration for something different. Television is so mature at this point. That's why the networks are bringing back old shows over and over again now, because it is so hard to come up with that new hook, scripted or unscripted, type of thing. So going back 10, 20, 30 years ago and going, what was a hit back then? And can we update it? Like Wonder Years, and they updated, and it is so good. There's a show, I think it's on NBC, called Ghosts, and it's so original and so clever, scripted show type of thing. But the take that was done on it is brilliant and unique, and they have so many different characters that you're never going to run out of layers on that.
Yeah.
As an example. So for me, there's an observation of the world. And then, every week I meet with my team and I'm like, what'd you see? What'd you smell? What'd you taste? And, people be like, hey, I read this article on this, or, a friend of mine told me about that, or I was just in Vegas and I saw this happen, and then, we banter around. Has it been on TV? The number one thing is I get outside pitches from producers like yourself, and 99% of the time they'll be like, okay, I've got this great idea, and they pitch it to me and I'm like, I've heard it. And not only have I heard it, it was a show like, 11 years ago. And they're like, really? When you're in television and development, you got to watch everything, literally everything, good or bad. Even if it ran, 2 episodes and was canceled, you have to have seen it, type of thing. And so, unless you've got that fresh new hook or angle or cast, because in reality TV, you either have to have an amazing cast or an amazing format.
The cast can make the show, like...
Oh, 100%.
I mean, the show may be kind of weak a little bit, but then if you got a really great cast, it can up it quite a bit. It's like anything else, like in a movie or even in a TV show. If the casting is right, the characters can always
they're
be
dynamic.
And that's a creative process too that goes through, because obviously unscripted, if you have a pilot, it's not necessarily going to be the same pilot that was given. It's going to be changed, doctored, and
Oh, sure. When I was in the scripted world and would do a pilot and didn't feel that the script was where it needed to be, but the showrunner was prolific, and my bosses at the network were like, you can't tell him those notes. He's blank and blank. And they would say, wait until he brings the cast on, and, we get these well-known, actors and actresses on. And, one pilot season, I made 3 bad pilots, and, it's not that everybody didn't try. These people, quite honestly, were way more prolific than I was. But, with scripted, if you read it and you're like, I'm not feeling it, but there's that hierarchy in Hollywood, and you can't, go to, some major showrunner and go, well.
Do you ever get stuck, like when you're trying to get something together? Yeah. Have you ever gotten stuck
during the creative process? Oh, there's many times. We develop about 80 shows a year, and out of those 80, maybe 30 get pitched to the network.
Okay.
And out of that 30, hopefully 3 will get picked up for either a paid presentation, pilot, or very rarely straight to series type of thing. But yeah, there's often times where we get some project in and, we just can't figure out, like, we got a great character, we have a great world. Those are 2 layers. And we're like, what are the other 3 layers? And just can't figure it out.
Mm.
That must be frustrating. Yeah.
It's some things just weren't meant to be on TV.
So let's talk about reels. Like if someone has a show idea,
like
whether it's scripted, a sizzle reel, a show idea, or even a reality show, should they make a reel? And how long should it be? And what should be in the reel to grab that executive?
I mean, I've heard 3 to 5 minutes for a sizzle reel.
Yeah, I mean, the shorter the better. A sizzle reel is basically like a movie trailer. It should make you watch it and go, holy moly, I got to see that. Or, for a production company, I want to buy that, type of a thing. So just recently I was talking to a talent manager, and the talent manager was telling me about this amazing talent that they have, and they made a deal with some local producer to produce the sizzle reel for them, et cetera, et cetera. And as I was hearing all of this, it was just breaking my heart, because I hear this all the time. No legitimate production company will ever ask talent to pay for it, ever, under any circumstance. And so the fact that this producer wanted to be paid to make the sizzle reel tells me he didn't believe in the show. And that's why he wanted to be paid for it, because he knew it wasn't going to go any further. And he was going to just act as like, a liaison of creativity kind of thing. So, it's a tough one, because sometimes a sizzle reel can help, but I would say if you've not done a sizzle reel in Hollywood or New York, you probably shouldn't do it, because you don't know what you're doing. You think you do, but I assure you, you don't. I'm going to say it's 1 in 1,000 sizzle reels that I've seen made by a non-Hollywood person that I was like, oh, wow, this is really good. I get what they're trying to do. I get what the show is. And, yeah, let's move forward on it. Most of the time, it's like, I hated the characters. I didn't like the way they told the story. Like, you can go on YouTube and literally YouTube search reality sizzle reels and see thousands of them that people have made.
I've seen them,
Yeah,
wanting to be, we've got the perfect this and the perfect that, because they don't know about like the 5 layers of the onion. They just think that I've got this wacky, dog groomer that does crazy customers. And it's like that old adage when you're talking about your family, and it was like, my family's crazy, and then you go to dinner with them and you're like, when am I going to meet this family? They're lovely human beings, but it's always about perspective. One of the analogies I came up with years ago about creativity and points of view is, Peter, describe for me in 2 adjectives the color red. No, do it right now. Give me 2 adjectives that describe the color red to you.
Fierce.
Okay.
Anger.
So you just described orange to me, or yellow. There's no way you can do any words to describe a color until I'm holding up right now a business card that has the color red, and I go, that's red. And now you're like, oh, red, I get it, type of thing. And it's the same thing for people that aren't in Hollywood. They think they know what to do and how to do it and how to present and that kind of thing. And some of it is correct, but more times than not, it's not quite. And so for them to spend the time and money to make a sizzle reel is heartbreaking, because they're not easy to do and they do cost money to do.
What about pitch decks?
So pitch decks, definitely, for unscripted, there's a convention called Real Screen. I know it. And it's mostly for the purposes of the national and international production companies to come together, meet all the networks in a social environment. However, when I first started off making the switch to unscripted, I went there not knowing a lot of the network people, and I used that as my schmoozability time. I literally there was a center bar at the hotel. I picked out the strategic seat, and I would not leave that seat because everybody's going to go to the bar for a drink. And so everybody rolled through there, and as they came up next to me, I'm like, hey, I'm a reality development guy. Who are you? And he's like, I'm the president of A&E. And I'm like, hey, and so, getting to meet those kind of people kind of helped expedite it. But the great thing about the point of it is it's a convention where nobodies or unexperienced or non-experienced LA, New York people can go there, get FaceTime with the networks, more junior level than president of a network, but and production companies, and they have seminars and things like that will teach and educate you into the way that we talk and the language our color red,
right?
Type of thing.
Right. And when you do get that yes, and you've never pitched a show before, do you do exercises and start to like, okay, I'm gonna win, I'm gonna do it. Like, what is it? How, when you first pitched a show, Harlan, were you nervous before you went in? Did you have, your thoughts all together? I mean, did you give them a one sheet, or like, how did you start the conversation during the pitch meeting?
So pitching is a true art, When I started off, I thought I was pretty good at it, but I was not good at it. What I am particularly good at is getting people to be entertained. I'm a pretty entertaining guy. Just on a personal note, like I do competitive improv for fun as a hobby, and it's to
Love improv, yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, we do
So much
improv,
fun.
yeah.
And it's to keep me honed as a listener as much as a speaker. So, having some paper is good. Oftentimes, because I pitch the networks, so it's different. Like for the average Joe, they're going to be pitching production companies. And they're going to pitch somebody, I've got this idea. I found this family. They have, 12 identical twins, and they're all 8 foot tall, and
they live in a shack and they're in the wilderness,
and they're survivalists. Exactly. And so, although that's being floated out there, and the production company development exec is like going to be like, oh, they sound really good. And of course, inevitably they're going to be like, do you have any tape on them? Which it would be more of a casting reel, not a sizzle reel,
right.
Which is just like, I want to see 1 minute on each of the 12 twins talking,
Yeah.
just to see what their personalities are, type of thing. Because, the psychologists say there's, the A, B, C, and D personalities, that kind of thing. And then at the end of that meeting, the production company exec will say, hey, can you leave me, some information on it, type of thing. And that should be 1 page, max 1 page, because inevitably what ends up happening during that discussion is the production company exec is fishing for those 5 layers. And if you don't know what they are, and that's okay, you could write up this, I've seen decks that were 8, 9, 10 pages long from a non-insider, and, it just rambles on about stuff I don't care about, like they don't have to tell me what the show is. I'm going to determine what the show is. I don't need to see the format broken out. I'm going to determine what the format is. I just want to know what's the show, and in 1 page, you should be able to, like a log line is generally around 5 sentences.
Log lines are very difficult sometimes because you have this idea of a show and trying to get the right log line or the tagline.
Oh, yeah.
It's that catch that you have to invoke someone to say, oh, okay, I think I would like to see that. You could sell a show in just 1 log line, really.
Oh, it's possible.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. One of my early shows, and I don't remember what it is because I know, Peter, you were going to ask me. I literally sold it off of 1 sentence.
Yeah.
I was at Real Screen. I was with some network. And, you were armed with your, 5 to 10 different shows that you have. And you're like, oh, for your network, what will be good? And, I was like, I've got this family that blankety blanks. And he was like, oh, my God, they sound great. And I was like, really?
And tell me more.
And so, we swapped cards and then, set up a time where I could probably go in and pitch him, type of thing. And, fortunately, everything that I had to support it all aligned with what they were trying to do programming wise.
Now, in my experience and other people I've talked to, it's really hard to contact a production company. They usually say they don't want any unsolicited submissions and things like that. And then you feel defeated because you have this great idea for a show, unscripted or scripted. What does someone do in that situation? They just continue to do interviews to get their brand out there, or what? Like, what do they do?
Scripted and unscripted run differently with that regards. The unsolicited material is hardcore in the scripted world because, Aristotle once said there are 7 stories to be told, man against man, man against nature, that kind of thing. And so inevitably in the scripted world, you're going to bump into, I'm doing about a Baltimore police force that, is a gang unit, I guarantee you that has been written, not necessarily Baltimore, but, to death kind of thing. And so on the scripted side, they're pretty hardcore. If that you don't have an entertainment lawyer who can submit it or a manager, an agent that's legit, send it, they're not going to do it. In the unscripted world, the production companies, which, again, we've most likely heard it or seen it or produced it, will have you sign, a document that basically acknowledges you may be pitching something we've already heard, type of thing. And especially if you come from within the entertainment industry in some way, even if you're like, in Chicago, and you work at a news station, something like that, or, you're in St. Louis and you're on a film crew or something like that, you'll be able to be heard in the unscripted world. And in the unscripted world, it's a little bit easier because if you want to do a home renovation show, there's basically 10 production companies that do all of them. So you would reach out to those 10.
So you have to do your research.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
And get to know who you're pitching to, too, because...
Well, you won't necessarily know the individual per se.
Well, look him up on IMDb, try to figure out what other shows he's done.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit harder because in development, like I said, there's 5 of us or 6 of us on my team. And not everybody gets the credit, type of thing. So somebody who may have had participation in it may not get credit. Generally it's the hierarchy kind of thing.
Do you think unscripted has a script, pretty much like the producers or the writers of the show, in the sense that they tell the cast what to do or how to say it? Or do you think that happens or no?
Well, every show is different from that standpoint. Like in the early days of the Kardashians, generally they would, not one of my shows, they would let the women do their thing. And then they would spin them back and then be like, do it this way, in your own words, go, type of thing. And then, now, the Kardashians have got it wired. They don't need them telling anything. They know how to create the drama.
They know the formula.
But, using on first seasons, like with Billy the Exterminator, we would go in and somebody had a crazy raccoon issue where there are 10 raccoons living in the house and they have children and the drama and the disease and everything. And, Billy would go in, meet with the client. We would pull him outside to do on the fly interviews. And then we'd be like, Billy, what just happened? And Billy would say what Billy says. And, he's got a great, dynamic, interesting personality. And then at the end of it, I'd be like, okay, you just talked. I wouldn't say it like this, but you just talked for 10 minutes. Do it in 1 minute.
Sure.
And then, he would go and do it again in 2 minutes.
Right.
And then, we would basically drive it down into the sound bites, getting like, what we were after, which was what you see in all reality shows. Oh my God, I've never seen a problem like this before.
yeah, exactly.
Like, oh my God, and that client, did you see? He was out of his mind. And those raccoons, I think they may have rabies.
Very interesting.
We need to wrap up the show. Well, we ran really long.
That doesn't matter. It's very good conversation.
I think it's going to be a 2-parter. We have somebody coming in 5 minutes. So
okay.
10 minutes. All right. Well, we need to wrap up the show. So, Harlan, you want to tell the audience your contact information? You're on Facebook and...
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Okay.
If you really want to find me, you'll find me.
Okay.
And the creative process continues. Thank you
Harlan
so much,
Freedman,
Harlan,
for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.